They can say what they want. This is still for sale. You're not buying a copyright. You're buying a piece of a company, Roc-A-Fella Inc. Please, only serious inquiries only. Hey, that's your boy Dame. That's his IG, Dusking Poppington. For those of you who don't know, I am Dave, a 10-year intellectual property attorney, dealing with everything from trademarks to patents, trade secrets, and you may have guessed it, copyrights. Now, this is a pretty interesting situation because as I just read, Dame Dash put on his IG page just recently, what this was 4 days ago, talking about, for those of you who don't know or who have been living under a rock, he has to sell his third of Roc-A-Fella Records. So for those of you who don't know, when Roc-A-Fella Records was formed back in the 90s, the company that we all know is tied to Jay-Z, it was Dame Dash owned a third of it, Jay-Z owned a third of it, as well as Kareem Burks, aka Biggs, owned a third of it. And now, fast forward 2024, from my understanding, the only asset that's a part of Roc-A-Fella Records is the Reasonable Doubt album, which we all know the first album of Sean Carter, aka Jay-Z, and what many would regard as his best album. So now, again, your boy Dame is talking about how, hey, it's still for sale. You're not buying the copyright. You are buying the actual piece of the company. His third, Roc-A-Fella Records. It seems like his third Roc-A-Fella Records is going to be auctioned off here shortly. And they're talking about the minimum bid is $1.2 million. So we're going to take a look at all this, and I'm going to let you know from an IP attorney how copyright got Dame in this position and how copyright is going to save Dame at the end of the day. So again, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I'm trying to bring you guys current events, not only from an entertainment perspective, but also for trying to provide value. This copyright, this IP, in this case, copyright is extremely valuable. And like I said, this is going to save Dame at the end of the day. But I will say, Dame, you're wrong. You are wrong. People are buying the copyright. Like you said, you own a third of the company. The only valuable asset of the company is the actual album Reasonable Doubt. And for those of you who don't know, that album is it's a copyright. It's a sound production, it's a musical production. It's a copyright that was created by Jay-Z, and it was assigned to the actual company, Roc-A-Fella Records, which, again, Dame owns a third, Biggs owns a third, and Jay-Z owns a third. So you are buying the copyright because that's the only asset of the company. The company has no other assets besides the actual copyrighted work. So by buying the company, you are buying an actual asset. So again, Dame is mistaken on this situation. And we're going to take a look at this article to show how Dame and Dash got into this situation, because it was unfortunately or fortunately by copyright infringement. And we're going to, again, obviously this copyright that's owned by Roc-A-Fella Records is going to save Dame Dash at the end of the day. And I'm going to also let you know how, because Jay-Z recently filed or had his attorneys file some paperwork through the U.S. Marshal's office that actually is, auctioning off Dame Dash 1/3 of Roc-A-Fella Records. And he's saying, hey, man, whoever buys this thing for the $1.2 million, they're only going to be able to own it for about 6 years. And then I'm going to be able to own the 100% of, again, the copyright, the asset, the album Reasonable Doubt. And I'm going to kind of explain to you guys how is Jay-Z allowed to be able to kind of get his rights to that Reasonable Doubt back. You hear a lot of times these artists complaining about the record companies owning their records and so forth and so on. And I'm going to show you how Jay-Z, by a rule in the copyright code, allows Jay-Z to get back his rights to Reasonable Doubt. And hopefully you, as the artist, to the extent that you have, assigned your company the rights of your IP or your copyright, in this case, to a company, how you can also potentially get your record back or your copyright back after some time. So let's pull up this article to show you how copyright law got Dame Dash in this situation, or copyright infringement, I should say. So we're going to pull up this Dame Dash 33% stake in Roc-A-Fella Records to go up for auction for at least $1.2 million. So again, this was August 5th. So a couple weeks ago almost. And I'm not sure who is Music Business Worldwide. It seems like that's a publication who wrote this article. So shout out to them. We're going to quickly go through this. And then again, I'm going to explain to you guys how copyright infringement got Dame Dash in this situation or this position to have to actually even sell his copyright or his ownership of Roc-A-Fella Records that essentially, again, comes with the album Reasonable Doubt. So Dame Dash 33.3% stake in Roc-A-Fella Records is set to be auctioned off later this month after the record executive failed to pay an $823,000 settlement 2 years ago. So again, just to kind of put things in perspective, Dame Dash is not saying, okay, I'm willing to give up my third stake in Roc-A-Fella Records because I don't want it anymore. He's actually forced to do this because he had a judgment against him where he has to actually pay somebody almost $1 million, $823,000. He has to pay somebody because he essentially lost a lawsuit. And as a result of that, they're going to auction off his 33.3% stake in Roc-A-Fella Records to essentially settle that, settle that judgment. So hopefully you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. Let's get back to the article here. But again, just keep in mind, he has to pay off this $823,000 judgment that he had against him 2 years ago. That's according to multiple reports citing federal court filings. Billboard reports that the United States Marshal Service will auction off the stake to satisfy a judgment against Dash in a legal battle with film producer Josh Weber over a botched film deal. The auction is scheduled for August 29th, so it seems like August 29th. So we're about 11 days away at a Midtown Manhattan hotel. So it seems like it's a hotel up in New York. Will reportedly start with a minimum bid of $1.2 million. Prospective bidders must post a $240,000 deposit. So it seems like they have to put up almost $250,000 in a deposit to essentially participate in this auction. So as I told you guys before, back in '94, this Roc-A-Fella Records was founded by Jay-Z, Dame Dash, and Biggs, or Kareem Burks, aka Biggs. Roc-A-Fella Records has signed and released albums for artists, Kanye West, Jay-Z, Cameron, Jadakiss. In 2021, Roc-A-Fella sued, so I'm not going to get off into that. I want to kind of give you guys, okay, here we go. In 2022, so just a couple years ago, Dash was embroiled in another legal dispute when film producer Josh Weber sued him for copyright infringement over a 2019 movie, Dear Frank. Dash was accused of trying to sell the film as his own, presenting it to various companies under a different title. So look at, essentially, you had this film, Dear Frank, and it was Josh Weber, it seems like, at least owned it. Again, the film is a copyright. That's what I'm saying. This intellectual property is extremely valuable. So whether you have a book, whether you have a sound recording, music production, whether you have a TV show, a film, which again, as we just heard, a 2D work, picture, 3D artwork, that's all copyrightable subject matter. And it seems like there was this film in 2019 called Dear Frank, where Josh Weber owned and Dame Dash tried to sell it as if he owned it. So in other words, the film, which we'll call as the copyright, Dame Dash is trying to say that he owned the copyright and sell it. And as a result, him not owning the copyright, he's committing copyright infringement because he doesn't own a copyright. And Weber, as well as Muddy Water Pictures, they sued Dame Dash for copyright infringement, as well as what was the other the big one was copyright infringement because he didn't own a copyright, and as a result of him trying to sell the copyright, which he didn't own, he was committing copyright infringement. And Dame Dash actually had he lost the lawsuit. He had an $823,000 judgment against him. So that's why I'm saying copyright got Dame Dash in this situation, because by losing a copyright lawsuit for the movie Dear Frank, which he tried to sell under another name, that got him into this situation where he actually had this $820,000 judgment against him that he had to actually pay Muddy Waters, as well as Muddy Waters Pictures, as well as Josh Weber. Hopefully you guys are picking up what I'm putting down, because I'll be interested in knowing what you think in the comment section at the end of this video. So let's continue to read kind of what's going on here. Let me pull it back up. So Weber and Muddy Water Pictures eventually won the case, which I just talked about. So Josh Weber's and Muddy Waters Pictures were the actual owners of the copyright work. In this case, the film Dear Frank. And Dame Dash therefore committed copyright infringement by trying to sell something that he didn't sell, a copyright that he didn't own. So, however, Weber claimed that Dame Dash refused to pay the amount. So essentially, Dame Dash owed Again, I told you he had this judgment, and since he refused to pay it, they said, okay, we got something for you. We're gonna force you to have to sell one of your assets to satisfy this judgment. So that's essentially what is going on here. Let's get back to the article. Meanwhile, a source reportedly told Billboard that the shares might come with some key limitations. Whoever buys will be a minority owner without. So it seems like essentially whoever buy this 33.3%, this is a third stake in Roc-A-Fella Records. They don't have any authority whatsoever because you have to have majority to do anything. All decisions require a majority vote. And as I would imagine that Jay-Z and Biggs will be on the same page. And this third person who has, essentially just paid $1.2 million for this last third of Roc-A-Fella Records is not going to be able to do anything outside of saying, okay, I own a piece of Roc-A-Fella Records. So that's essentially what that paragraph is saying. So then let's go to it. Christopher Brown, a lawyer at Brown and Rosen, who represented Weber, essentially the winners in that Dame Dash lawsuit, told Rolling Stone in April that Dash shares have actually been assigned to United States Marshal at my request. So he actually doesn't have anything to sell. He's not even in possession of the stock. So Christopher Brown, a lawyer at essentially the law firm Brown and Rosen. So pretty much what's happening here is that Dame Dash, we just read his IG post. He's talking about, hey, serious inquiries only. You're buying a third of the Roc-A-Fella Records. You're not buying a copyright, which we already said that he's wrong in that. But setting that to the side, this lawyer is saying, hey, Dame Dash doesn't even own his 1/3 stake in Roc-A-Fella Records anymore. It's been assigned through, at the request of Christopher Brown, the lawyers of the actual winners in this case. It's been assigned to the United States Marshal's office, and therefore Dame Dash doesn't have anything to do with this situation. So Christopher Brown, the lawyers of the winners in this case, assigned or essentially, put in a request to have Dame Dash stripped of his third and assigned to the United States Marshal's office so that they can actually sell. So Dame Dash putting all this stuff on his IG. He doesn't have anything to do with this auction. He doesn't even own his 1/3 stake. He's not in possession, as the article said, of the stock at this point. So he has nothing to do with this auction, or he's currently not an owner of Roc-A-Fella Records. So that's that. Let's get back to the article here. Is that pretty much the end of it? Brown's statement at the time sought to clarify reports about Dash and he's spearheading the auction. Okay, so that's pretty much what it's saying. It seems like the attorney is saying, hey, I want to clear things up because Dame Dash is making it seem like he's in control or kind of organizing this auction. And the attorney is like, man, look, this dude has nothing to do with this auction. So that's pretty much what that is saying. So now let's look at what Jay-Z is saying, because Jay-Z and his attorneys has filed something to the United States Marshal's office, essentially trying to get rights back to this 1/3 stake early, because he's saying, look, back in 2031, so in 6 years, I'm gonna have these rights anyway. So whoever's buying this 1/3 stake for $1.2 million, they're not going to own this thing for a long time. So you guys might as well give me this, essentially give me my work back to reasonable doubt. Because again, that's the copyright. That's the only asset in Roc-A-Fella Records, which they're auctioning off the third of that asset. So essentially, whoever buys that third of Roc-A-Fella Records is going to own a piece of reasonable doubt. They're going to own it for only 6 years. So Jay-Z, through his attorneys, is saying, look, whoever buys this is only going to be able to make money off it for 6 years, and then I'm going to get rights to it. And so you may be asking, how can he do that? So it's this thing called, it's a clawback provision in the United States Copyright Code, where after 35 years, if you created a piece of work and you assigned it to someone else, or you gave rights, in other words, to another company or to another person, you can get those rights back in 35 years. So Reasonable Doubt was made in 1996, as we all know, and 35 years is 2031. So in 2031, Jay-Z pretty much can get his rights back to not Roc-A-Fella Records. So the person that still own Roc-A-Fella Records, I guess, but the asset that's in Roc-A-Fella Records, that being the copyright Reasonable Doubt, they wouldn't own that copyright because that copyright will claw back or go back to Jay-Z. So that's essentially what Jay-Z is saying. And he's pretty much trying to tell, he's probably going to lose that argument, but the damage is already done, because you already have had publications put out that information to pretty much put people on notice that, look, you can buy this thing for $1.2 million if you want, but it's going to be a bad investment for you, because we're going to we're going to essentially get, you're going to be losing your rights in 6 years. It's going to go back to Jay-Z. So that's pretty much what they're saying. And we saw this a while ago with the new Bad Boys movie that just came out, where the owner or the creator of that Bad Boys movie tried to get the rights back from the film studios. But what happened, and that's settled, but if you are creating a work as a work made for hire, so if a studio is coming to you and say, hey, we're going to pay you to create this particular work, you cannot use this clawback provision to get your rights back to the copyright. But if you create this on your own and then you later assign it, so we all know Jay-Z created Reasonable Doubt, then he ended up assigning it to Roc-A-Fella Records. And as a result of him creating that, which was not a work made for hire, he can get it back in 35 years, given this clawback provision. But if a studios or someone actually, it was a work made for hire. So if somebody is paying you to make this particular work or this particular copyright, you cannot use that clawback provision and get the copyright back in 35 years. But to the extent that you created this on your own and then you later assign the rights to it to a company, to another individual, you can get those rights back as the copyright owner within 35 years. So that's how Jay-Z is going to essentially get his ownership of the copyright Reasonable Doubt back in 2031. And he's pretty much trying to tell the United States Marshals that, like, look, y'all can do this if y'all want to, but this is going to be a bad investment for whoever's paying $1.2 million, because they're not going to own this thing but for 6 years. And they probably won't make their money back at that point in time, and I'm going to get the rights back. So that's essentially what Jay-Z is saying. So let me know what you guys think about it. Think about that in the comment section. And just kind of the overall situation. Like I said, Dame Dash seems like he's putting some stuff out on his IG that I just disagree with. And it's unfortunate because copyright got Dame Dash in this by committing copyright infringement and therefore having that $823,000 lawsuit against him. But copyright law is having a copyright is going to save it, because his 1/3 stake in Roc-A-Fella Records, which owns the copyright Reasonable Doubt, is going to allow him to satisfy that judgment of $823,000. So copyright got Dame Dash into it. This situation, the copyright is going to save him, because again, if he didn't have that copyright or that ownership stake in Roc-A-Fella Records that was backed by the copyright, the asset which was a copyright, then he would actually have to either file for bankruptcy or liquidate his other assets, whether it's companies, whether it was his house, to satisfy that $823,000 judgment. But because he had an asset which was backed by a valuable copyright, that being Reasonable Doubt, he can just get rid of that. Or what's happening in this case, they're going to auction that to satisfy his judgment. So let me know what you guys think about this. I tell you guys this time and time again. This copyright stuff or intellectual property is extremely valuable, whether you have a trademark, whether you have a patent, whether you have a trade secret, whether you have a copyright. And in this case, it just so happened that Dame Dash having an asset that essentially is a copyright is going to get him out of this $823,000 hole that he created by committing copyright infringement. Talk about the irony in that. Hopefully you guys got something out of this video. Again, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section of this situation. Let me know what you guys think about Dame Dash. I know a lot of times, and he is a very smart guy, very smart businessman, but I know sometimes he can kind of, what they say, he can kind of can write something that his can't cash. And unfortunately, in this case with the copyright infringement, he did that. But luckily, he had the copyright that is going to cash in and save him on this situation. So hopefully you guys got something out of this. Until next time, take care. Peace.